Hey, Stephen. Okay, let's call the meeting to order. The Finance Committee meeting for the 9th of July, 4 o'clock. We have a quorum. Welcome to our new returning member, Chris Kowacki. Chris, you know everybody. So welcome back. I personally am quite delighted to see you here, so I'm glad you've rejoined us. Jill Veith, who I met with about a week and a half ago, is on vacation, so she will not be here. And the rest of our merry band, I have no idea where they are. But the traffic isn't that bad leaving town today, so they don't have. What?
We can guess where Peter.
We know where Peter is. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway. Given that we have no public audience other than our three erstwhile friends over there, I assume there's no public comment. Approval of minutes from our March 25th and 27th meetings. Can I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
A second, please? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Stephen's raised his finger.
Does the highlight mean that the person was not there? Is that what that is? In the attending members section, but not in the absent members section, we have McEachern and Sanford highlighted.
It was a long time
I assume
ago.
that's what that means.
That probably, I didn't.
Probably
yeah,
means
that,
absent.
They weren't there, so
Okay.
the highlight was I was waiting to see if they showed up.
I see. Okay.
I need to correct that. So
Mark me down as
yes,
2 minutes late, but you can't get the other guys for not coming at all.
Okay, you'll make that change, and with that change, are you okay, Stephen?
Yes, aye
Great.
for me.
Okay. Today is the day we do the election of our officers for the next, for this current fiscal year. So chairman, vice chairman, and then we need to have a couple of appointments. And we also, the housing, Alex, I had sent you something on housing. I don't see it here on the agenda. Well, we're going to appoint somebody anyway, because we're not going to call another meeting. So this would be an appointment to the Housing Neighborhood First Committee. So anyway, so unfortunately we don't have more members here, but so Chairman.
I'll make a motion to nominate David.
Second.
Well, thank you very much. I'm happy to accept. Any others?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Do you oppose, Brian?
Not at all.
Vice Chair? We have a nomination for Vice Chair?
Nominate Steve Maury.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You want to serve, Steve?
I do, thank you. Yeah, we didn't even ask David, we just drafted him.
Nor did we ask you. It was more fun last year when you weren't here and we nominated and elected you.
Committee representatives to capital program. So Peter has been our capital program rep. Is there anybody desirous of moving into that role? I mean, the advantage from my perspective of Peter doing it is that he's now familiar with the process. The disadvantage is that he's been doing it for a few years and maybe.
Well, he's familiar with the process, and his background professionally also, relates very well. For that reason, I'd be reticent to step in. I don't have that same.
Yeah, I mean,
background.
I'd be willing to consider it if he definitely said no, but I'd be just as comfortable, if not more so, with him there.
Okay.
Does he still want to do it? Do you know?
I don't know, but I am headed to the yacht club after this, and if I see him, I'll tell him we nominated him, and if he wants to pull out, he can, but,
Okay.
because I don't think, when are the meetings starting?
They've already started.
Oh,
They got on Thursday, but
has Peter been going? He probably does he normally go during the summer? Sometimes?
I don't even remember meeting this early last year, so
they've had.
You're hitting your deadline.
Meetings so far, they had like an after meeting, I think, and then they talked a bit about the schedule, and we're trying to set up this, what's it called,
SIP.
something. Something like that. It's meant to be the chairs, the vice chair, council at the CapCon, and they're gonna meet ideally once a month or so, and, Tom,
And fight.
I'm sorry, it's you two, right, Steve and, Denise, and Steve, you don't, I want to.
No, I already missed the first one.
Who went, are you sure?
I went to one.
I'm sure that I didn't go to it.
I went to one that was a joint group thing.
I can't, was I there?
I'm barely remembering if I was there, Libby, so I can't help you on that
So,
one.
anyway, the idea is that a couple reps from those three groups. Yeah, I think they are, yeah, because I was gonna have these, right information. Okay, well, anyway, the idea is that they meet kind of regularly, smaller group, compact group, to catch up on where we are with things as we, so that people are more a little up to date about what's happening. And I think there's a sit meeting next. On Monday the 22nd, 3 o'clock, water council, but I do not see it. In any event, Capcom has a meeting on Thursday. But I think Peter said other things going on, so he just hasn't been able to make it, and it is early, they're starting
Yeah.
earlier.
Well, he's obviously been very busy, so why don't we, I'll see if I can hunt him down and just confirm he wants to do it. If not, would everybody, is there anybody else besides Chris that's interested in Capcom?
Not particularly.
Okay, so if you're game, if Peter wants a reprieve, then I'll reach out to you and let you know.
Yeah, fine, but absolutely comfortable with him doing it.
Yeah.
With me, so don't let him off the hook too easily.
Okay. Contract Review Committee, this is Denise's favorite committee.
Well, Steven's in my favorite committee.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, he also has that. Did they add more members to the contract review committee? Libby, do you know? Because we had trouble getting a quorum last year.
No, they didn't, but I think what they did was, they reduced members from the Council of Human Services.
Okay,
We had a town meeting article that reduced members.
because we had trouble getting a quorum 2 or 3 times, and we haven't even approved the final report officially yet because we can't get a quorum.
I think that was part of the problem, and there weren't enough people on Council of Human Services to make up the membership of the contract review, so they reduced the number of people required.
Okay,
We did that at town meeting, but I still don't think that the Council of Human Services membership is filled, it's still being applied.
except for Linda.
She's already on it.
She's the only one on it?
No, there's Dorothy is on it, and I don't remember who else is.
I'm talking about the Council of Human Services. I'm not talking about the contract. I know who's on the contract review or who was on the contract review committee. Okay.
I know that Dorothy and they're on it, but I don't know.
Yeah, because it's whilst I will take a breath and continue with it, if so voted in, it was a pain last year when we would have people coming over from the mainland or from Martha's Vineyard, and we'd have to cancel a meeting because
Right.
we couldn't get a quorum and we couldn't get members to call in saying they weren't coming, so we didn't know it, and
It's an incredible amount of work
for the amount of
for
money.
the percentage of the budget that we're reviewing.
Well, is it in need of some revamp and rethinking?
I would say yes.
I think in a
personally.
couple of areas. Like one is how many meetings go into what is very important, but always ends up, everybody gets 80%. Not everybody, but generally everybody gets 85% of what they've asked for. Some people get everything because they don't ask for a lot. So it's like you make somebody come in and give you the whole spiel about what they've done, which is nice to hear, but maybe not necessary.
And then there's a
could
site
be
visit.
submitted in writing.
Yeah.
And then there's a follow-up site visit on each person who applies.
Yeah.
So it is,
You might be able to skip straight to the site visits
yes.
for people who are interested. Because really it comes down to numbers at the end. There isn't a qualitative discussion about, where dollars should go. It's just, is it vital to the sustainability of the organization? And if it's not, maybe we'll pull back from there and put it somewhere else. And that's really where I think the reform needs to happen is how do we decide where the money's going to go, right? Because we have, and I know we talked about it for an hour or so at the end of last year's process. What happens when the hospital, or if the hospital were to tell us that they're not going to fund
Social services.
social services department?
Yeah, and with the discussion about capping, saying you can apply and everyone's going to get at most up to X. We haven't been able to have a quorum, to have a meeting, to have that discussion since before town meeting. So, I mean, a couple times they were last minute scheduled and I happened to be off island, so I'm part of the problem too. But we need either it needs to be a 3-member committee where a quorum is 2.
Right.
Or it needs more people who want to be actively on the committee besides the ones that are currently on it.
Well, let me ask the question this way. Is it worth putting brain power into this problem or not at this point?
I frankly think I could sit down with Dorothy, come up with a pro forma, bring it to the existing committee, get it signed off, and boom, change the way the process works.
So would there be any opposition from town administration to approach it that way?
I'm trying to even look for Council on Human Services on the website, I don't really see it, but what is the approach?
Well, I was saying I could sit down with Dorothy and just say, let's talk about how much effort we put into it, and look at what's happened historically, and is there a way to streamline this? And
The process?
the process,
Yeah.
to streamline the process of review. And maybe we don't even do the site visits, we go the other way and just have everybody come in and present for half an hour so the whole committee hears about everything. I think that Dorothy would be reluctant to lose that piece of it, but I don't know if the site visits are necessary. And then say, and there will be a cap to, it has to be X percentage of whatever the town allocates or something. No one can get more than 15% of the town's allocation or some way.
Set of criteria you guys would work
Yeah.
through and bring to your committee.
So then that way, everybody gets a fair shot at applying for the money, and no one person sits there and knows they can come in and ask for, half of what the town is allocated.
You don't see any problem with it? Okay.
And then Dorothy can then, as the chairman, sign that off, and then bring it to the whole committee for review and sign off.
Yeah, the only thing is the criteria wouldn't be legally binding, but it probably isn't a bad idea to have it as your kind of guidance.
Yep. Right, okay. I will reach out
All
to
right,
Dorothy.
so you're gonna be the rep, you'll reach out to Dorothy with the idea that we'll put some effort into trying to get this streamlined, so. Does that sound fair? Okay, great. Then we have the,
Vote her in? Did we vote her in? Do we need to
oh
vote her in?
yeah, well, I guess we
I
should
don't
vote
put
her
me
in.
just in case I decide to change my mind.
Oh, look who's on.
Okay. All in favor of Denise?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Denise.
I humbly
Thank you,
accept
Denise.
your donation.
Thank you.
Cervically.
Yeah, ask her about February on that one.
Yeah, ask me, yeah, exactly right.
And then we have the Neighborhood First. So there is, we're the only group that has not sent a nominee. The first meeting, I think, is the end of July, maybe now into August. So,
We don't want to rush into these things.
well, I think they were struggling to find, and it's going to be a classic problem, struggling to find enough people who will make the meeting to have a quorum to have the
How many
discussion.
people are on the Neighborhood First?
So there are 2 resident reps, there are 2 property owners who aren't residents on the committee.
Okay,
There's 1 select board member or 2. There's a FinCom, I think there's a planning board member.
and they're responsible for doing all the heavy lifting to how this will work. Is that the remit?
I think
of-
essentially they're setting the criteria. They're not responsible for administering.
No, but I mean, it's setting up the process itself.
Right, what's the criteria for applications, yeah.
And
It would have to be in process too. not
the
just
the Housing Trust Fund's got
the
a
process for
rep,
that.
I got a
Okay.
rep, at least 1 rep. Maybe 2. Tucker's on it, I think. Tucker's running it. It's the staff person, yeah.
And maybe, I don't know, does that fall in Ken's wheelhouse also?
Yeah, well, he'll be if and help him.
Yeah.
Joe, you volunteer?
I second that.
I second that too.
The third it.
Okay, the other person who is also volunteered is Jill, so, Jill Veith, so, I feel obligated to let you all know that that is the case.
Okay.
So it's Joe?
No,
We haven't voted,
we haven't voted yet.
so Jill would also like to be considered. So why don't we start with Jill, all in favor of Jill being the rep?
Sorry, just for clarity, we're starting with Jill?
We're gonna start with Jill and then go with
Okay.
Joe.
Nay.
Nay.
Okay. Doesn't matter.
He's recused himself for some reason.
All right, so Joe, everybody
Aye.
in favor of Joe?
Aye.
Okay. All right, so Joe, thank you very much for offering to serve.
Thank you.
I will communicate that to Tucker.
What is the, what was the date of the first meeting?
Yeah, I think that's kind of,
Will you send me a notice?
That'll be interesting.
I may be able to tell you right here in a minute.
But, we'll tell Tucker, I think.
So you're gonna tell Tucker I don't have to?
Yeah, we can help.
Okay. July 29th at 1 to 3. Okay, I have no idea where it's gonna be. All right, Brian, would you take us through the year-end transfers, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, as everybody, most of you remember, at year end, before July 15th, we can do transfers with the approval of the FinCom and the Select Board between various budgetary accounts. Since my time here, we've worked really hard to actually reduce this and worked with the departments on paying much closer attention to their open POs, what they can close, to try to reduce the amount of transfers that we actually have to do. So this year, we're proposing transferring $204,660.78. We're gonna take that all from general insurance, and it would be transferred, first of all, $65,615 would be transferred to IT expenses. We did purchase some additional project management software, which the town, in conjunction with IT and town administration, we felt that we needed with the amount of projects that we actually are trying to manage, and it would be a much more robust and efficient way and a transparent way for the town to manage it. So we did make the decision to do that, and we've begun implementation so that it can be rolled out during fiscal 20. We're proposing transferring $31,995.78 to Plus in their general expenses line. This is essentially kind of a hedge because we are still in the process of working on the indirect costs for finalization for the 3C grant. It is very possible that this won't actually be necessary and would roll automatically to free cash once the fund, because we get reimbursement for indirect costs from the state and it flows into the general expenses line, and we're still working through the final report to prepare to send to the state. So they do have a small deficit of $31,000, but we believe it may actually be covered by the 3C grant. But this, in the event that the 3C grant doesn't cover it, we have the funds. Otherwise, it will flow to free cash like it would have sitting in the insurance line. HR, due to some transition and some staffing needs, we hired some search consultants one of the positions we hired a search consultant for was the treasurer vacancy. So we need to transfer $19,573 to cover that shortfall there. Fire was, I think, a few minor additional expenses related to the implementation of ALS that we had covered through the general fund. Legal expenses, we had made a transfer at town meeting, and it did appear that we probably would not need an additional transfer, but we just received last Friday all the final 630 bills from our legal counsel. So we're proposing transferring $35,000 in the event that it actually is in excess of what we were carrying there. Again, if we don't need it, it will just flow to free cash. And then lastly, last year we had encumbered some funds for the staffing study and other various initiatives that we had undertaken with town administration. And some of those have gone on, or potentially maybe costing slightly more than we had anticipated. So we're proposing, while town administration does have money in the professional services line, again, we're proposing this just to ensure that if any of those bills exceed what we had anticipated, that we do have the funding. And the majority of these, if they're not needed, just will flow simply to free cash as they would have in that line. One thing I do need to note, actually, where it says general insurance, this actually should be health insurance, not general insurance. The health insurance budget was 11 million, not general insurance. So that's my fault for not catching that, but that's actually health insurance. And in the health insurance line, just to let you know, the surplus was just under, in the general fund, based because of timing and what the rate actually came in, the surplus was about just under $900,000. So we have the coverage there, and we'll still be returning that to free cash
Okay.
at the end of the year.
Great. Any questions, Brian? Question I had was on the HR expense. Did you not anticipate that you were going to have to hire a search consultant, or is it just more expensive?
Truthfully, I didn't anticipate that we were going to have to be searching for a treasurer, so
Okay.
we wouldn't have anticipated hiring a search consultant because of that.
Obviously,
Yeah.
sure. Okay, great. Anything else?
No?
Motion to approve the transfers? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Amazingly enough, I guess this year, because the town members, we actually, I know the next agenda item is reserve fund transfers, but we don't have any.
So we get to keep the 500,000?
Well, you get to contribute it back to free cash.
Is that a first, that there's been no,
I think last year we used very little.
Pardon me?
We didn't use a lot, so
yeah.
they're very good. The finance committee is really great in managing that, so we thank you.
No, sir, I'm serious. Is this a first, or?
I don't think it's a first,
I don't,
but
but
it's a rare.
It's a rarity.
and last year we did not use a lot of it as
I know we
either,
didn't,
so,
yeah.
It's
We did really think that we might need some for the town members' degree matter. I don't know if you have money with that, but there's some underground debris is starting to be exposed from the bluff, and it's largely
Yeah.
on the beach, and then a lot more under the bluff.
Yeah.
It's around penetrating radar to determine the extent of it, and it was one of the
Is it ordnance? Or was it just dumped by the Navy?
We're not totally sure what it is, but we suspect, based on discussions with people familiar with the site, that there may be vehicles,
A lot of tires and stuff, right?
possibly lots of concrete items. So we have
Anything hazardous?
Isn't necessarily hazardous, although we're not 100% sure about that, and I don't want to start talking about it publicly if there's no need to. However, we're probably going to have to get a hazardous assessment sooner
Yeah.
rather than later, and then somehow deal with it. It might be a phased approach, but ultimately, we're probably going to have to get back in there and then do some restoration. But we don't want to get too carried away with implementing any town members' master park planning without having dealt with all that. So, go to
So given that that's the, pardon me?
go to a different news.
Even further down?
Further down is fine. It's
Yeah.
just this one.
Yeah. How close is it to all the houses on the bluff?
It's not that close.
Oh, okay.
It's more where the old VFW sort of was. In fact, it might be part of it.
Mm. Okay. How close is it to conservation property?
I don't think it's that close.
Okay.
It's pretty much in the town park area.
Area, yeah. Okay. Thank you. We have a schedule for town, for our meetings, and it looks like we also have room locations. Thank you very much. I'm sure this was not an easy task.
Maria upstairs is a saint.
Pardon me?
Maria is a saint.
Yeah.
It's a huge help in getting the 4 to 6 across the board.
So why don't you book this into 2020 and 2021 and 2022 and just get ahead of the game. So I think that we'll, one of the things, just Chris, for your benefit, and I think everybody else was here, but when we got together jointly with the select board, the idea was to try to increase the amount of joint discussion and head-to-head meetings. So I see that reflected here, and I hope that the schedules, I think our schedules will accommodate it. I hope that the select board schedules will accommodate it and will follow through on doing that. I think there's probably some good value to be had there. And I hope that the Capcom gets done before Christmas. We'll push Peter to make sure that happens. And if not, Peter, Chris, your goal will be to get done before Christmas. And I think we'll sort of proceed the way we have in the prior years. You were moving our Saturday meeting though, weren't you?
You have a backup date to Saturday, February 1st, from the January 18th. So is the backup date because people aren't ready by January 18th?
Well, 18th is a 2 weeks ahead of when we've been doing it.
Yeah, I think that was the
I think it was originally the 25th you guys had penciled in, but then you had, you had a conference on that date. So it was either push it up early, but more likely we probably end up going later, I think.
18th of holiday weekend. Is that Martin Luther King weekend?
Yeah, but
That
they have
sounds
a
On the 25th, they
on the
do.
25th.
Yeah,
a
so probably
big
the 18th you're
select board
suggesting is
say-
not a great date because it's a holiday weekend.
Seems like a lot of people go off that weekend, but
Yeah. So maybe we should just stick to the first.
Okay.
If we don't stick to the first, or we don't move it, if you would decide whether you're gonna be able to get there earlier rather than later, so we're, in terms of having all your work done.
And town meeting's a Saturday this year?
Yeah.
Is it a every other year thing? No.
It depends on the calendar and when Easter and Passover fall.
Okay.
It just depends. And they work out this year.
So. And I'm hearing no rumblings about a special town meeting, but I may not have my ears to the ground on that
I
one.
haven't heard, somebody asked about it a couple weeks ago, are you having one? And I said no.
Okay,
So hopefully that.
No means no.
decision is final.
We don't have regular one,
great.
proceeding is in.
That'd be good.
Okay.
Picked a good year to get back on.
Yeah, you did.
Any questions about the schedule or?
No?
Thoughts?
That's mine. Yeah, this is excellent to have it so soon.
Yeah.
Get it all out and
Block off the dates and we're good.
Yep.
Yep.
Committee reports? Any committees? Date of our next meeting is to be decided, but probably not until December if we don't have a special town meeting.
Yeah, we've invited you, is it on here?
December 4th, yep.
Yeah, but prior to that, aren't we having a, review of the board projections?
In September.
Yeah, so it's not on here yet, but, we usually have a preliminary projection review with the board at the end of September.
Mm-hmm,
We usually invite you to that.
okay. End of September?
Yeah, I think it's mid to.
Yeah, I think it's. We did it.
Yeah, we don't know, somewhere.
Okay. Anything else?
No, sir.
Shall we adjourn?
seems like a plan.
Okay, motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Everybody have a good rest of the summer. I hope I see you around.